Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to continue the series. This is part 3 of how to run a successful consulting business. Once you have your consulting brand, your value proposition, decent marketing, and you know how to sell, it's time to look at how does this thing get to scale. So there are really only 3 ways that any business can scale. Number 1, you can raise your prices. You can charge more and just make more from the same amount of volume. Another option is to get more clients and to add volume of clients to the equation. And the third way is to add products and services. I'm going to dive into each of these in this video. So how do you grow your consulting business? Number 1, by charging more. Well, you can do that by positioning yourself as more of a thought leader. Thought leaders attract more business. It's just the way things go. People want to work with the best in the field, and the best can charge the highest prices. If you'd like that to be you, then what you can do is start to really position yourself as a thought leader by writing a book, doing some speaking engagements, or even hosting your own event in your industry. If you can host a conference or a summit, and it doesn't even have to be live in person, it could be virtual, you can start to position yourself as that thought leader. The second way is by getting more clients and just adding more volume. Now, the problem with that is, of course, you probably don't want to work more hours, right? You're already working enough. You've already got a pretty successful business. So in order to do that, you're probably going to have to add some staff and improve your sales process. You're probably looking at adding some sales staff, somebody to do more sales, unless that's an area that you're really excellent at and you can handle more volume, and or you're going to need to hire some more staff to deliver, which means really nailing down that signature system to deliver the results that you deliver. So you'll want to look back, or maybe you've already nailed this down, maybe you've already figured this out. What are the steps that someone would need to take to replicate the outcomes that you've gotten with your clients? So looking back and doing case studies of your past successful clients and saying, all right, what are the common threads here? What are the things that we do every single time? How does this discovery process work? How does this delivery work? And really, creating systems and processes, standard operating procedures, so you can replicate results even if you're not a part of it. Now, for me, that's the least attractive option. So I'm going to share with you my third option, which is my absolute favorite option, which is to add new products and services for that same audience. So you can add new products and services. For example, you can create a course, or you can create a business in a box, or some sort of do-it-yourself version of what you've been doing consultatively for however long you've been doing it. So you can create a do-it-yourself version that people can buy and do themselves. Now, here's the kicker though. I personally, you know me, I'm always talking about the big back end, that monthly recurring ongoing subscription revenue. So if you're going to do any kind of DIY, do-it-yourself, course in a box type of thing, I highly recommend that you make sure that you also create some sort of support system to help people through that project and help them after the project, some sort of monthly group program that they can do together. That's how I built and grew my consulting and coaching business. I basically stopped doing the one-on-one consulting and coaching and moved into creating a group model. Now, the way I did that was through retreats and masterminds. And I'm not going to get into that right here, right now, because I have a ton of videos. But if the idea of leading in-depth, immersive retreats with your clients and then supporting them after the fact in a group format appeals to you, then I highly recommend checking out my retreats business playlist. I think you'll love it. I'm going to share a couple of examples of people who've been able to scale a consulting business really effectively. And one of the best ways to do that is with a model that's a licensing model. So in a licensing model, what you do is you codify your content. And maybe you get it from the book that you just wrote that I told you that you should write. And then what you do is you codify the steps, the process that you've developed, that you've perfected over the years. And from that system, you can train other people to do it, but not train them as your employees, but rather train them as outside consultants. So here's an example. One of my good friends and mentors, someone that I admire very much, is named Mike Michalowicz. Mike has written several books, one of which is called Profit First. So Mike is an author, he's a thought leader, he's a speaker, he's a superstar. You can check him out, look him up online on videos, he's outstanding. So Mike wrote this book, Profit First. It's for entrepreneurs like you and me, and for how they can take more profit out of their business by taking profits first, meaning before expenses, take out the profits, and then what's left over becomes expenses. Now, it's a whole process. There's bank accounts involved. We use the Profit First methodology. And by the way, I interviewed Mike for my podcast, which is a great thing to check out as well. And so Mike, with this book, what he did was he trained accountants and consultants and coaches in the Profit First methodology. So basically, he created these programs where they could train and learn the system. And then once they trained and learned, he would certify them. And then they could go out and offer this service to their clients. Now, with the certification, he was very smart with this. He didn't just certify them one time. He charged an annual fee to keep the certification going and provided support in exchange for that annual fee. So now he's got an army of accountants and consultants and coaches that are trained in Profit First. And because he gets all these leads from his books and his speaking, all those leads come into his website and then he farms them out to his Profit First consultants. Isn't that a beautiful model? By the way, if you're wanting to see or to hear that podcast now with Mike, go ahead. It's in the notes below. You can click on the link, and it's my very first podcast episode, actually. I love this guy so much that he was the first one I called and said, I want you to be on my podcast. So check it out. I want to share one more example of someone who used this model really effectively and was able to grow their business really big by scaling it with this licensing model. So Gino Wickman wrote a book called Traction, and it's all about operations in a business, how to really perfect and tweak all the mechanical parts of the business so that the business starts to run like a well-oiled machine. So now Gino had a very successful consulting company, but of course couldn't keep up with the demand and the volume generated by his book and his thought leadership. So he did something similar to Mike Michalowicz, but different as well, where he created a system and then trained these consultants in his system. Now these consultants go out and implement the system, but one of the ways that they make money, Gino Wickman's company makes money, is these consultants buy materials and tools from the Traction company, from Gino's company, and software as well. So for example, I worked with a Traction consultant, and she basically came in, charged me, I paid her, but she bought all these materials from them that got sent to us. Including, I had a software subscription for a couple of years for a monthly recurring revenue subscription for the software for the implementation of the program. So that's another way that you can grow and scale a successful consulting business. So over these 3 videos, as we've talked about building a consulting business from the ground up, from the inside out, from the very beginning all the way up to its biggest execution, you've noticed that I've mentioned that everything that I've talked about kind of falls into 3 categories. Number 1, branding. We've talked a lot about branding and building yourself up as a thought leader. And by the way, I have a whole playlist on thought leadership, branding, and marketing. The second is your business model. It's how you make money, how you charge for your services, how you essentially exchange your magic for money. And then the third piece that's kind of woven through everything else, but I haven't really talked about explicitly, but it's really important, if not the most important, is your mindset. Is how you feel about the business, how you're showing up every day, the energy you bring to your marketing, to your sales calls, to your team, that mindset piece. So those are the 3 most important ingredients of a consulting business and really of any business: your brand, your model, and your mindset. And so if you'd like to do a check-in on your business and how you stand in these 3 categories, I highly recommend checking out my Superstar Business Assessment. You can find that at superstarbusinessassessment.com. And basically, it's 10 questions in each category that's going to give you a really clear sense of where you're really strong in your business and where you are really weak, and which are the areas to shore up quickly to see the biggest impact on your bottom line. So go ahead and check that out at superstarbusinessassessment.com or just click on the link below. Enjoy.